the leading authoring tools in the industry have joined us today to talk about the future of authoring tools. And we've got our very own Andrew Scivally, the original brother for the eLearning Brothers here, to moderate this session. So we're going to go ahead with the session. Afterwards, if you have any questions or anything else, you're welcome to walk back into our booth. And we want to remind everybody, at 2:35, right here on the stage, we're giving away about $10,000 worth of stuff. So if you haven't gotten scanned, go back to the booth as well. So now it's time to learn about the future of authoring tools. Make sure to put it right in your mouth. If you're going to use the mic, make sure to put it right in your mouth.
All right. Hey, everyone. Oh, you do have to put this right in your mouth. Where else has this been, Curtis? Only licked it twice. Great. All right, so just quick introduction. So Akshay, product manager at Adobe for Captivate, really runs Captivate, the vision and design and future of that tool and where it's going. Mike Alcock at Gomo leads Gomo and developing that tool. Before that, Atlantic Link, big authoring tool. John Blackmon over at Trivantis, been there forever, one of the founders there. CTO leads the development of their tools. Tanya, been at iSpring, 10 years, I think? 10 years at iSpring. Is Director of Quality Assurance, I believe, right now, among many other titles that I couldn't remember all the acronyms and initials. So anyway, I'm really happy to have them with us here. So as we were thinking about this, we thought about, what is the future of not just e-learning, but the authoring tools in particular. So at eLearning Brothers, we're really into the authoring environments and the authoring tools, so we like to talk about that a lot. So I thought, how can we do this? So we thought, let's get some of the individuals that have really been building the authoring tools that we all use now, that are leading the industry. Let's talk to the actual individuals who are hands-on building those and obviously thinking about the features of that in the future and where they want to take these. So these would be the best individuals to talk about tools that we're all going to be using, 5, 10, maybe 20 years from now. So what I've done is I've come up with some questions that we're going to start with. And I gave them a heads up on some of these questions. That was just to make them feel good, but now I'm just going to throw out other questions that they've never heard of before. I'm just kidding. So one of the big things that we're seeing, and if you go around the show here, you're seeing a lot of AR and VR, right? I went through a demo over here the Guild was doing where I got to shoot like space robots and things like that and pull out my shield and do like the Matrix thing and avoid their bullets. So AR, VR is obviously coming. It's not a thing, a fad or anything like that. So that's the first question. I want to talk a little bit about AR and VR. Where do you see it going, and how are authoring tools going to let us use that and build that, and what are some of the cool things we can do with that in the future? So I was at the Adobe Learning Summit Tuesday. Akshay, they were showing some sneak peeks of some stuff they're working on. So Akshay, let's start, and your thoughts on AR and VR.
Sure. First of all, thanks for having me over here. Thoughts on AR, VR, I think it's always hard to look into the future and predict, because I know, at least historically, looking at the stuff that we have done, we've almost always been wrong in predicting what the future looks like. But looking at AR, VR, we have more definitive data and insights that it is a real thing. And there is, at least on the AR side, the adoption is quite real, right? So in the VR, you still need a headset. And for the headsets to come into the learning department, it's going to take some time, right? That's not a de facto choice that you have. But with the AR, all you need is a phone. You just pick up your phone, we build in the learning into it, and you can get started. So at the Adobe Learning Summit, we've shown some of our sneaks around it, 360 images, videos, which I think are building blocks for VR. And we have underlying tech to do AR as well. So going forward, I definitely see these experiences built in as default experiences within our tools. And as industries progress, we'll see that some of the learning experiences today are limited to a single seat, right? You have to sit on a desk most of the time. Even though we have the mobile phone, it's not as immersive as we'd like it to be. With AR coming, it becomes more mobile. You can actually go and learn things on the fly. Sometimes you don't even need to be at a physical space. All you need is a QR code or an image through which you can learn, so it makes it very dynamic. So I'm very excited with the possibilities that AR is going to bring, and it's definitely an area of focus for us.
Mike?
Sure. Basically echo the comments, really. VR's a tough nut to crack. You've got to have a headset. It's interesting. I think it's going to come, but we're keeping a watching brief on it. I think AR is more likely here today, especially now we've got mobile devices, geolocation, cameras, and we can take a photograph of something, compare it with something we've got in our course and start overlaying content on it. So I can see very immediate uses that we're starting to be asked for in the AR field, definitely.
And I think geolocation is a really interesting thing as well. Being able to actually have the course recognize where you're at in real time, right? And serve up data and content that says, hey, I know Andrew's at this particular museum or this office in the building, and showing that content live and on the fly.
So without a doubt, I agree that AR is here today. Used for performance support. You'll see it a lot there where you can use a phone and really do just-in-time recognition of things. But I also think that VR is here today. We're actually showing a VR product at our booth for e-learning with VR called Scenario VR. You actually use 360 immersive video to train. And it's actually not hard to get into. You can use it with or without the headset. So I agree that the headsets are kind of hard to come by, but you can get Google Cardboard headsets for about $5. We're giving them away at our booth. And you can use those to create training. So there's a lot of application for it right now. It's not for everything. You're never going to do if you're training on software, you're never going to use VR to train on software, right? But if you're training in a situation such as office safety, security, loss prevention, anything where being in the situation makes a big difference into how you'll perceive things, then I think VR is actually the tool of choice. And it is here today.
And Tanya, what's iSpring seen as a future in VR?
Well, right now young people is harder to train. It's harder to involve and explore new topics, new features, and now augmented reality and virtual reality can help us. You can easily involve, but because it's a fully immersion in your topics, in your content. We already have simulations for pilots, for drivers, for machine operators who practice without any maybe troubles, and after it they can use their maybe skills on real people and real missions.
So I think what we're seeing is the leading authoring tools, the people that are building those tools are thinking about AR and VR. They're working on stuff now. They're demoing stuff. It's in beta and things like that. So it's definitely coming. My thought is it won't be very long now until these authoring tools have easy ways for us as developers to quickly build this. Right now, if we want to build a really cool VR thing, it's a lot of money. It can't be that way for much longer, right? So there's got to be ways that we're going to be able to mass produce that and do some really cool things with that. So one thing, what I wanted to lead into next was, so us building stuff. So with these tools, it's made it really easy for the average person to build content. You don't have to be an instructional designer anymore. You don't have to be a programmer. You don't have to be a visual designer, or graphic artist or anything like that. So one of my questions is, in the future, what are the tools thinking about when it comes to their responsibility, maybe to the industry or to helping us to build content that's truly effective? Because we can build a lot of stuff now, and I've been there, I've built a lot of stuff, and I'm not proud to say that some of it just wasn't that good, right? Maybe it didn't follow a lot of methodology and all that. So what are the tools doing to help us that may not have a background in design to build content that is effective, that is engaging, and that truly works and helps learners? And so let's start with John.
Thanks. And I think it is kind of the responsibility of the tool to kind of guide you along, right? So, the tools provide templates. We provide a lot of templates. Many of the tools provide templates. Things that you can use that show you how to do it. So one of the biggest areas is responsive design. So it's very important to get that working properly so that it works across all the devices. So, we provide a lot of templates. We actually get many of our templates from the eLearning brothers as well. Those give you the ability to follow that path and use that methodology to create better content.
Tanya?
I think it's awesome that e-learning becomes the most popular format in educations. And in this case, offering tools should be more productive and less complicated. It should be help us to create content. And I think we already have a lot of tools with a content library, with templates, characters, icons that can help us to create content easily and fast.
Okay. Mike, do you have a comment on this one?
Yeah, I think we have got a responsibility. At gomo, we have a number of techniques in place that allow our end users to do user-generated content. We're seeing this at PwC. They've got like 200 people now creating content. So we've got a concept of themes that control the user interface and guarantee the user interface is perfect across all the different devices. They're all responsive HTML5. But then we also spend a lot of time on the instructional design thinking that goes into our interactive assets so that they are truly instructionally correct. So the drag and drop asset, there's a lot of research into that. How's it going to work on a phone? How's it going to work on a tablet? How's it going to work on a desktop? So that we can, when you give it to a subject matter expert and they're populating it with the questions, the actual user interface and the way those things behave is already handled by the software. So the end user doesn't have to worry about that part of it.
Akshay, what are your thoughts then around the tool's responsibility for helping us, I guess, be good stewards in the industry and build content that works?
Sure. I think that's definitely an important aspect of building tools. So I think I can speak on behalf of Adobe. So when we started off, we were looking at the tool as a canvas to create anything you wanted, right? It's like a blank canvas and you can paint whatever image you want to do. But quickly, if we figured that a lot of our users aren't specialists in the areas that you'd require to be good at to create content. For instance, experience design or visual design or responsive learning. All of this are not skills that you inherently know. So that's when we felt that, if I go back in time, two key decisions for us was to actually bring in assets within the product. So for a while, till about 5 years back, Captivate did not have assets within the product. And of course, we work with Andrew and his team. We actually now have a lot of assets available within the product to actually help you get started. And also, we have sample projects that give you the entire experience. So many times you want to touch and feel the experience before you start creating. That's something that we help do. The other aspect is when we started off responsive learning maybe about 3 or 4 years back, we saw that there's a lot more to it. People want to not just create, but actually visualize the entire experience while they're creating it. So what does it feel like when it's being published or previewed and so on? So all of those elements have come into design. And I think overall, I can speak on behalf of some of the tools as well. I think design has become a more centric piece to the tools. And if I go back in time, even maybe 6 or 7 years back, they were not as good from a human-centric design perspective. But now I see that we are more human, and we're not there yet. We're not where we aspire to be. But I think in the future, you will see that content creation will become more and more easy, and it will be close to the things that you do normally. Imagine if content creation was as easy as doing email, for instance, right? Where you don't have to learn anything. You just do it, right? So that's our aspiration to get there.
So what it seems like we're seeing a lot of also is that, it used to be there was an authoring tool, and you buy an authoring tool, and it was up to you to figure out the content. It's like, look, I'm the authoring tool, and build whatever you want to. But the trend that we're seeing is that authoring tools, we realize that at the end of the day, what we're really trying to do is build content. But that's why we're buying an authoring tool. That's why we're buying an LMS, right? We have content that we want to launch. So the content comes first. And we're seeing that trend from tools, whether it's putting in templates and assets or whether it's going in and helping us think through the content or content libraries being integrated, a lot more tutorials and case studies. We're seeing full courses that are being integrated and sold with the authoring tools where it's like, hey, here's a sample course. Tear it apart and let us show you how to do some stuff. So we're seeing a lot more of that. My guess is that it's also going to continue because I think it's good business to help us as developers learn how to be better at what we do, because when the learners actually come back and we see real results, then the organizations will want to build more e-learning, therefore we will want to buy more tools and all of that. So One question I was just thinking of now is, what is something that surprised you? So you've been building tools for a long time. What is a feature or something that we suddenly really liked and were clamoring for that you're like, huh, I didn't think we were going to go that way, but we did? Sorry, you, Mike.
Okay. Yeah, when we started with Gomo, we just did the authoring piece. And via a very fortuitous sequence of events, we ended up acquiring another company, and they had a whole hosting and distribution suite. And the surprise for me, when I was given this other product and told to look at both products, I was expecting to probably kill one or the other off. We weren't going to have two authoring tools within our group. And the surprise was that we could take Gomo content in the cloud and push it into this other product and use it as a distribution engine. So to suddenly end up with a method for getting my content out to learners instantly was a huge surprise. I just thought I'd be like an authoring tool creating a lump of SCORM, but we've now got a distribution platform. So that was a big one for me.
For me, it was probably when when you heard that the iPhone came out and everybody predicted, oh, in about 10 years there'll be Flash won't be acceptable. Well, it took about 1 year for that to happen, and it was so quick. I don't think anybody in the industry was ready for it at the time. I mean, that was a big surprise, right? How fast Apple dropping Flash could affect everything that we did as companies out there. That was a huge surprise to me.
Yeah,
Speed.
I didn't see the Flash death thing coming either, but that was my background. I built everything in Flash, and then all of a sudden it was gone. And I will have to say it was so much easier back in the day, but whatever. So everyone's adapting to that. Yeah, the mobile thing took me a bit by surprise how quickly it went as well. And one thing I've noticed, though, and maybe raise your hands on this one. How many of you are actually building content that the majority of the learners are taking that on a mobile device? All right, so this is usually how it is, right? There's just a couple people here. However, when we go to buy your tools, is it responsive mobile? Does it work on mobile? That's on our checklist, right? It has to do that. Even though most of us aren't using it for that yet, or a majority of our content's not going out that way, we know it's happening, and our organizations are adapting to that. So we're glad the tools are out in front of us and actually our needs there. Akshay, what was a big surprise?
Well, actually, I mean, my biggest surprise was mobile as well. I mean, it just took all of us, on the back foot, because we didn't anticipate that the industry would move, because it's, quite a big surprise. And also, just to add on to what John said. So I remember that moment when I really realized it was a big thing. It was a customer somewhere, I think, was in Chicago, and I was just meeting her, and she had a phone with her. This was maybe 5 or 6 years back. And she was taking me through some of the courses that she wanted to do on her phone. And it was, I would not say one of the best designed courses, because I would say 80% of the course was just text, right? It was just text. Text with buttons, and I would say largely an image here and there. So, but she told me that her learner satisfaction numbers improved by 60% the moment she made it available on the phone. And it was just text. It was not even, interactive stuff and so on. That was, for me, I remember being that moment when I realized that this could be big, right? And it was maybe 2012 or 2013. But yeah, so I think we've come a long way from then on, but clearly that was the one thing that we didn't anticipate.
Tanya, what was a big surprise for you?
I'm also agree with John, and I think the offering tool will be everywhere, on mobile, on desktop, because some people are interested in desktop tools, and other people are interested in mobile-based tools. And we will be able to create content during the flight, and sometimes people do it now, maybe in the morning commute. And the question is not when it will be. The question, question is not will it be. The question is when it will be. I think it will be maybe next year or maybe tomorrow. Who's now? I think it's simple questions, and that's all.
So it seems like mobile took us all by surprise a little bit. And we all get paid lots of money to figure out what's coming and how quickly it's coming, and it still caught us off guard. So anyway, there's mobile, and we know that I think it quickly went from mobile to being available just on anything. Because I think we're starting to realize that mobile isn't necessarily the mobile that we know today. It's basically how do we get tools that can build on any type of device, because we don't know what these things are going to look like, and even next year we're probably going to be a bit wrong. So I had a question about what worries you, what keeps you up at night? So you're running these products, and these products are doing, you know, tons and tons of revenue. They're shaping the industry, and you're responsible for that. And so if 5 years from now, you know, they may look back and say, hey, you know what, Akshay, didn't you think about this, man? Like, what happened? So what makes you a little bit nervous? What keeps you up at night? What are you thinking about when you can't sleep?
Well, sure. So, I mean, it's really, I think, we spoke about it at the summit as well. I think the rate of change has just, I mean, the time we had to adapt to changes has so rapidly, like, shrunk, right? So, when we look at, like, AI, for instance, like 2 years back, we weren't even talking about it. But right now, it's kind of on the top of people's discussion. So, I think, for me, what keeps me up at night is really figuring out what's changing. Like, it's many a times you're wrong in predicting, but that doesn't take away the fact that you stop learning for it, right? So you're actively looking at what's happening out there, and many a times you're not looking at learning and what we're doing amongst ourselves, but what are our consumers doing? What are our learners doing? What are organizations doing? And are there patterns, or are there things that we are obviously missing out? And I mean, historically, I know that we've missed some obvious things that, you know, if we had paid more attention or we were more real, we would have determined. So that's definitely something that keeps me up at night.
Well, you know, several things. One of the things is these guys keep me up at night. You know, I gotta do a lot there. But no, really,
Mike's thinking about you at night.
yeah.
What's Mike doing right now? 'Cause he's awake, he's awake over there in England. What's he working on?
No, really, the thing that keeps me up at night is worrying about that thing that I don't know that's coming next, right? That flash going away, that mobile, all the different things. And you know there's something around the corner that I have no idea what that's going to be. And that's going to keep you up at night all the time. You're just waiting for that to come when that other shoe drops.
Yeah, got to agree 100% with that. My previous product, I invented it in 2002. It was entirely flash-based. And I was fortunate enough to sell it 2 weeks before Steve Jobs stood up on stage and said, Flash is dead. Because if I hadn't, believe me, I wouldn't have sold that company. So it's what's coming next and the things we might not know about. Something I think that's got possibilities, they haven't done it yet, is maybe Google come into our space and do it for free. And put all of us out of business potentially, because you know they've got Hangouts that's putting GoToWebinar out of business. They've got Documents that's putting Microsoft out of business. They could potentially come into this space.
So worrying about big competitors that don't seem to need to make revenue for some reason. So they just somehow print their own money and don't need to make it from sales. Tanya, what keeps you up at night?
We believe in that 20 years the line between the distance and the classroom teachers blurred completely. And we can't expect it that 5 years ago that Flash is maybe go on. And we can't expect it maybe in 20 years HTML5 also go on. We doesn't know about it. Maybe you know the famous Noel Isaac Asimov profession, and this Noel fully answered on these questions. We don't know what it will in 20 years.
One thing we've noticed, and we've all seen this, we're so dependent on other technologies or other formats of files and things like that. So, right, Flash going away really, at least for eLearning Brothers, rocked our business. You know, there were a lot of things that we had built in that particular platform. We didn't see that coming. And it's comforting to know that others didn't either. So, you know, I'm like, all right. The smart people didn't see it either, and neither did I, so that's fine. And then mobile taking off. So we're seeing this interconnection between all these other companies that aren't necessarily training related, but they're affecting us. And how do we think through those? How do we quickly become not too dependent on something else and be a little bit a little bit independent, knowing that we still have to work with these others. So another question. So we know kind of what keeps you up at night and all that. What would you consider to be maybe the biggest win with your product? So when you came up, like, what was that one idea or that one feature or something where you came out and said, you know what, this is the one I'm most proud about. This is the one where, we think we really nailed it, and kind of one of those notches where you're like, yeah, I missed a few, but hey, I got this one. I'm gonna let people know that one. Tanya, what was that? Big win.
I think in the nearest future we will have a content like the long read, because people like long read. Looks at modern website, for example, Apple. It's a long read with convenient navigation, and in the nearest future we also have long read with convenient navigation, because now similar courses looks like a PowerPoint slides with linear scenario navigation. If you would like to reverse information from the first slides, you need to come back from a navigation button. You need to put and button if you want to come back. And I think it's sometimes boring, and if you have big courses, it's time consuming, I think.
Hey, Mike, what was one of those big wins?
Big win for us is something called the gomo LMS wrapper. We've devised a method of delivering SCORM content to LMSs, but leaving the actual content, the course, in the cloud, the video, the audio, the text, and the graphics. So that allows our customers to put a SCORM course in their LMS, and instead of it being 300 megabytes, it's 13 kilobytes, so the payload is tiny. And if they need to update that course, they just do it in Gomo, and the LMS just looks back to Gomo and sees the changes. And an example of that one, we invented this later on in the life of the product, and we'd sold the product to Burberry, and they wouldn't look at this bit of technology. It took me 6 months of phone calls, and when I showed it to them, they went, oh my God, we can update courses live in 30 seconds. It takes us 3 weeks at the moment. How much does it cost? We'll buy it. So that was a real game changer.
Yeah, there have been quite a lot of things. We've been around since 1999, so quite a lot of things. I was trying to ponder it while you were asking the question there, and I think really the method of responsive design we were able to put in, that was probably for me one of the biggest ones recently that we've done that I think stood out, and it was just the ability to still design in the way you've designed in the past, but have that work on all the different devices. I was very happy with that one.
Yeah, so for us, I mean, if we go back to 2013 or so, Captivate was largely an application simulation tool, right? So in 2014, when we brought in the concept of responsive learning, which was the first time that you could actually create content for devices from an e-learning perspective, I think that was a big win, because I think there were two things. Of course, the mobile thing was happening where there was this fear of what's going to happen to all my Flash content. So we got in the concept of future-proofing your content, right? So essentially, you create content, Captivate. You don't have to worry about whether it's Flash or HTML5 or what phone is going to come out in the future. I think that was the moment that really transformed the way our users looked at it, and we looked at our products in a new light. For me, I see historically that as being a big win for us.
So, by raise of hands, how many use a browser-based authoring tool? So versus a desktop. So browser-based. All right, now desktop-based. Okay, so probably a third of you looks like online-based versus desktop-based. So we see both in the market. Some of the companies, Captivate desktop right now, Gomo all online, Trivantis does both, right? So when we think about the browser-based authoring tool versus a desktop-based, where's that going in the future? What are the big difference? I mean, the big differences between the desktop and the online. Is it just going to all be blurred in the future? Where are we going to be actually building content at? Actually, we'll start here again.
Sure. So I think there are some fundamental differences between the browser and the desktop in terms of what you can do with it. And I mean, maybe Mike or John may be better placed to answer this. So one of the things that there are two clear things for me with the browser that I hate and I like. So with the browser, of course, it gives you the flexibility of being anytime, anywhere, accessible, and all of that stuff. But from a company standpoint, it also takes away the experience. Like, it takes away the control, the reliability, because a lot of it now starts to depend on your relationships with the browsers, browser updates, and all of that other stuff. So there's a little bit of more control, and there's a little bit of less control. And in terms of maintaining these products going out, I'm sure Mike will be better placed to answer it. You have to look at multiple platforms, multiple browsers, and the time you spend doing it sometimes can eat up into doing more inventive stuff or more innovative stuff. So there's always a trade-off that you need to make. The second aspect of the story is really the control, right? As a user, like, how much are you in control of the product that you're using? And we do a lot of research around it. And what we've seen is that and also, I mean, this is a little bit to do with perception as well as, the products that are out there. So the desktop products tend to give you a more real feel of being in control. And you can be offline. You don't need to be connected to the internet and have complete control of your experience. So that's something that's a huge plus. But that said, I think browsers are becoming more and more capable. There are web apps that are as good as apps that can run on the OS. So I think in the future, I see a lot of us being primarily browser apps or doing more things on the browser. But there are certain things that you can't do on the browser. Let's say you had a system simulation to do on your system, right? So, and that needs to get data from your system, but you're working off a browser app, you won't be able to do that on a browser app. So there are some constraints in how you could work, but I anticipate all of that changing, and even the technologies we are using, let's say you have a healthcare system, or you have a manufacturing, tracking system, or whatever system that is, once those back-end systems also start to move online or on the browser, the e-learning tools can also follow a path. So today we have a lot of those systems actually as physical systems on a desktop. That's also a constraint that we have to deal with. But to put it in short, I think it's the convergence is happening. I think companies like Google and Apple are leading that convergence. Not more from a learning perspective, but more of more wider use cases. But I think that will definitely happen.
All your eggs are in the online basket.
Yeah, I'm 100% online with my products. Clearly, I'm going to say the cloud. I think the benefits are huge. You can collaborate. You can all work on the same course at the same time. You've got your shared resources. You can edit your course on your phone, on your iPad. You're not tied to the PC that you've had to install the products on. But my colleague here is absolutely right. The amount of time and effort we have to spend on testing across browsers is ridiculous. They're getting better. Chrome especially is fantastic, but we do have to spend too much of our budget on cross-browser testing, both with the authoring tool, less so for the content because that's less complicated, but the authoring tool inside a browser needs a lot of testing on the different browsers.
Yeah, I side with Mike on that one. I think the cloud is the way to go. I mean, we came out with the cloud product first in 2008, and I was famously wrong about that. I said that there would be no desktop authoring tools in about 3 to 5 years. Couldn't be more wrong, of course. So we support both sides. And I think, eventually where it's going is more of a hybrid model where you have your online tool, allows you to do all the sharing, all the things that are important to do online, but then allows you to take it offline and work offline for a little while. Maybe check out some of the work on that work offline, and then upload it later. So I think it's going to a hybrid model eventually, so you get some of the benefits of both.
Tanya?
I think mobile-based offering tools will not be fully functional due with screen size. As we now organize work process compared to desktop is very difficult. But of course, we will have some editing options in your content on the mobile phone, and it will be synchronized through the cloud if your desktop version in one time.
And I think what we've felt at eLearning Brothers, and as we've been building different projects and all that, is, I was always partial to desktop installed tools just because I felt like it seemed faster, and I didn't have to wait for the browser and be dependent on the internet and all of that. And then there came to certain points where I'm like, man, I wish I could share this project quickly with others, and we can not be tied to just me working on this at one time because we had time constraints. I need to get it done faster. So I started we started seeing both sides of this. And so my hope for the future is that it will be something where it's, either the browser is just super awesome and it's just as fast as my desktop and I do it there. Just an authoring tool that works everywhere, right? Whether it's on my desktop or online or whatever it is, but that it just feels fast, that just responds to me. Now, one thing that we've also seen is just with our content, every time the bazillion browsers in the world decide to change something, that it affects it. And again, we become dependent on all these. It seems a little bit easier at times on the desktop where we've installed it on a machine and we're not changing that machine settings, every 3 weeks or whatever. But so anyway, definitely something I know you guys are thinking about. I know the authoring tools are making, this is one of the big differentiators, right? That, some are online-based, browser-based, some are desktop-based, and selling the features of each one of those. So I don't remember what time this session ends. Do I have a little bit more time? 5, 10, 5 and plus 10. Okay. All right. So last question here. And I know this is kind of far out there, but we're all going to be here still in 20 years, right? Doing the building training. So what is something that you think may be a bit obscure now? You're going to get this wrong. It's okay. But what's that one thing way out in the future that may just kind of sideswipe us? And we're like, wow, I had no idea that people would want to be able to do that when they're building learning content. So the one thing where you think is going to come out of the dark, and all of a sudden all of us here are going to be like, hey, I want our tool to be able to do that. All right, I didn't give you this one earlier, so who's got an idea? Who wants to start? John, you're going to be wrong.
Well,
Document this.
I'm totally wrong. But you know what? I'd really like to create my content on the holodeck, wouldn't you?
Holodeck, yes.
Yeah, on the holodeck. That's it. See, but but seriously, yeah. If you think about it, if you have an environment like that where you can actually use holograms and do things like that, you want to talk about immersion? It puts VR to a whole nother level. So something of that sort would be a complete game changer.
So maybe I'm in holodeck actually just building my own training and
Build
drawing
the training
with my
in
hands.
there and take the training in there.
And
Why
take it
not?
that way.
Yeah. Why
Sounds
not?
good to me.
All right. 20 years. Why not?
Mike, what do you think? What's an obscure thing maybe now that we're all gonna want?
I'm going to get this wrong as well, but I was thinking about artificial intelligence inside authoring tools, helping you to build a better course. Hey, I don't want the Microsoft paperclip approach, but it appears you're building this kind of course. Have you thought about, or automatically assembling, topics and content and saying, hey, I've got some resources here that would help you to get that course. So maybe, and we are looking at it in a very virtual sense at the moment.
Tanya, let's do that. We'll end with Akshay.
I think we can suggest our clients how his course looks like in real time. We suggest in real time, and when maybe automatically upload all necessary information from the internet. Just one word. You can search one word, all information put into your course, and will be fast, and this will be fast delivery to your students. I don't know.
Yeah. Akshay? 20 years.
Yeah. 20 years.
Or
I
two,
think,
because it could be two.
I think I'm going to be wrong with 2, so I'm going to take a wild shot at 20, right? So looking at the pace of change, I think AI is going to sound like pretty old in 20 years. Taking a long shot, 2 things might be true. Either we might be figuring out how to train on Mars, maybe, if Elon Musk gets us there. Yeah. The second one could be like transfer learning. Like you're probably not learning anything at all. Like you could have a chip within you which is just transferring learning to you. I don't know, how many of you have seen The Matrix where it kind of plugs into, that could be a reality. I don't know if you've seen some research. So there's the whole thing with transfer learning is becoming a reality. So we are now actually at a very native stage where we can actually communicate by doing nothing, right? So just a brain to, like a system to a brain communication where you're just transferring information. And you're just doing things by thinking about them. So it's scary stuff. But those things could be a reality in 20 years, and we may not even know what a tool looks like, or we may not even need a tool, right? So I have no idea. But if I'm anyway going to be wrong, I might as well be wildly wrong, right?
So it's going to be like Wall-E or whatever, where we all sit in those chairs, and we just decide which tool we're going to plug into, right? We can do an annual subscription for the Adobe plug-in here in the back of our head. But what I'm hoping for is that in the future, my biggest feature request would be this, that I no longer have to know how to spell at all. Because sometimes even I mess it up so badly that even the spell check doesn't know what it is. So help us. If I don't have to spell in the future, I'll buy your tool. But anyway, so my guess is it was similar to that. I don't think we're going to be necessarily building a lot of training in the future. My guess, if I had to throw it out there, would be similar to what Akshay was saying, where it's there's way too much stuff for us to know how to do, and it's changing too quickly now even for us to keep up with it. So there's going to have to be a way where we can just say, I need to know this, and we just know it. That it's just fed straight into our brain, or you're a SME, and it somehow just reads your brain and says, hey, you've been with the company 20 years, I'm going to suck everything out of your brain that you know, and every employee is going to have access to that now. And you're a new employee, just plop that on there you go. Now you know everything that Cindy knew. So that would be my guess, that we're not really going to be building this stuff in the future. We're going to be specialized in very niche areas. And then maybe we can sell our knowledge. There could be a knowledge marketplace where I'm like, hey, Akshay, for $20 a user, I'll sell everything into my head to someone.
Can I borrow your brain?
Borrowabrain.com. There you go. So anyway, again, thank you. Thank you for the hard work that you're doing, and the hard work that you're doing on thinking about what we want and what the learners need and all that, and staying up late at night thinking about that. And I want a round of applause for these guys. Thank you.
So we've got about 5 minutes. Was there any questions from the crowd? Anybody want to ask the leading experts on e-learning authoring a question? Here we go. We got one down here.
Hi, so with the emergence of MOOCs and microlearning and all that kind of thing, where it's becoming more along the lines of grabbing multiple types of content and stringing them into a path, how do you see that impacting the authoring tool per se?
Did you get the question? Right. Who wants to answer that one?
And I think the authoring tool has to adjust to microlearning, right? So a lot of us have built tools to work with large courses, but it needs to be able to work with it, and the tools generally do. The tools can be used to do that. Most of our tools can. It's just a different way of thinking how to create the course. So I actually gave a talk on that earlier about, go in, make it navigable so you can get to anything at any time. So it'll work for both e-learning and performance support. Smaller bite-sized chunks so you can get in, get out real quick, because that's the way people are using it now, and with the MOOCs and the bite-sized learning.
Great question. Do we have another question? Here we go.
I think it's kind of related. It's like curating and stuff. How are you going to, like you said, plug into somebody's knowledge and stuff, but you can't plug into everybody's knowledge about everything. So somehow you're going to have to somehow you're going to have to tell people the AI can help, but where do we go from there?
Sure.
What
That's
do you
a great
think,
question.
Akshay?
Yeah, and we've been working on it, and we did a sneak peek at the Adobe Learning Summit on Tuesday. So it's humanly impossible for us to curate content because we are such bad judges of good content that we can never see. We look at it, and what might be good to you might not be good to me, and there's no clear definition of rules. And you're right. So we are actually experimenting with using AI to curate models, or curate. No, I would not say content libraries. Even it could be pieces of microlearning. It could be elements that I think as employees, you come into an organization, everybody brings in their own intelligence or smarts that they can help. So together, collectively, can we use everybody's inputs and use AI to curate experiences that are great for an organization? So that's definitely something we're looking at. And if you're interested, I can share more information into how we're doing it.
Other thoughts? No? Okay, we have time for one more question. Who is it? What do you guys want to look into the future and see?
this is probably going to be awkward for you all. And like when you said like what keeps you up all night, and you said each other, but as a user, I'm like, oh man, Captivate, it's really great for this. Gomo's good for that. And like, to be honest, I'm like, I wish all of these different companies would just monopolize, because if I could have the benefits of them all, I would be like a rock star, right? But like, with that said, like, how do you all, like, do you coordinate with each other? Like, with AI, like, I know you're doing your independent studies, but how do you all learn from each other for like the immediate future? Because, each has their own benefits, but if you share them, it would greatly help me. I have a large toolkit of authoring tools.
So he's using all tools. When are you guys consolidating?
What I do is take a free trial of all my competitors' products on a very regular basis and nick some ideas, I'm afraid to say.
That's pretty much right. So I think everybody has my email because I've tried their products. So I think, all of us, if you look at the industry, right, we are actively looking out at not just what each other's doing, but I think we can't just improve by looking at what each other's doing, but look at what the best tools in other spaces or best experiences are, and try to bring them into our products. Because as a user, definitely I see where you're coming from. And there's a whole bunch of variables for us to deal with to make that better. And we all believe in certain stories of what e-learning are, and we kind of differ at sometimes it's fundamental, sometimes it's more at a feature level and so on. But I think going forward in the next few years, you will see that all of us will get better at what we are doing, because I think now the tools that we have to understand data behavior is so good that we don't have to wait for that long, right? We get that insights much quicker. So hopefully we can get better than you anticipate, and you like us a lot more, but it's going to take time.
And just one more thing, we are all competitors, but this is not the first time we've met. We know each other, and when Mike comes up with a new feature, I go to his booth and he shows it to me. He's not like we hide from each other. We do communicate, so no worries there.
I think the good thing now too is that these tools have progressed so much.
I have answer. I would like to say thank you for you all, because you give us idea how to improve our products.
It's what's nice is the tools have progressed so much that there's not this massive difference between tools like there used to be, right? Back in authorware days and stuff like that, there were clearly some that were just heads and shoulders better than all. So now they've been able to, they're fairly close. Honestly, 90, 85% of the stuff that you're all doing is the same. We can get the same results out of the tools. It's who can help us faster, better, more efficiently, and then who has those specialty areas where it's like, oh, I really need to be able to do this, and okay, Gomo is great for that, or oh no, I spring in this area. And so I think there will be some mixture, just a tool set, kind of a whole box that we have at times.
All right, well, thank you, everyone. We appreciate our guests coming here, the leading authoring tools in the industry.